All right, so I'm playing a little bit of catch up here. This one came out in April, and yeah, I'm very slowly getting my albums that I needed to record, behind me so that I can dive a lot deeper into the upcoming records. Now, it's been hard. It's been hard because, man, I want to just spend so much more time with these records. And yeah, 2025 once again proves how great the musical landscape is at this point. So without further ado, let's just dive into it.
One thing leads to another. It's all out there to be uncovered.
Camel by Brass Camel. So Brass Camel is a new rock band. I will kind of say that they're flirting with progressive rock tendencies rather than being a full forced progressive rock band. I believe this is their second album, with their first album being Brass. So we have Brass and Camel, which begs the question, what are they going to call their third record now that they've basically used both names of their band? I went back and I listened to Brass, and it was fine. It was fine. Honestly, it's this album here that I've really flocked to and really kept coming back to as well. The overall musical presentation of these boys are what I was hoping bands like 6x6 would be, where it almost sounds like these are rockers from the 70s that really loved that style and was doing a lot of innovations way back when, and then came back later on to be almost like the supergroup to create this amazing and wonderful sound. And we've had a number of these bands. That's not necessarily the case. That's kind of what they sound like, but I believe these are all brand new faces, brand new outlooks that really do want to just create some fun rock music in the same vein that, say, Von Hertzen brothers did, where it's just fun with, progressive rock tendencies kind of thrown out. And the reason why I'm talking about this album is that not only was it recommended to me from some of my friends here, Nathan on Shuffle covered it, but also I had a look at it, and it opens and ends with a 11-minute track. Opening up with Zealot at 11 minutes and 9 seconds, closing with Another Day at 11 minutes and 56 seconds. So almost 12 minutes. And immediately I thought that, are they aware of the influences that they are using with the naming conventions that they've chosen? Because, Camel, the band from the 70s, has a track called Another Day, as well as, I looked at the image, the front cover of this record, and it looks exactly like a Camel record. But yeah, no, it's different. These guys are a lot more heavy, definitely more in the rock vein than Camel was. And I feel like they're channeling more of the prog rock that we got out of the 70s in America, with bands like Boston, Kansas, Styx, that kind of flavor of rock first and prog kind of second, even with some of their longer stretches of music. And I'm not saying that as a negative. If anything, I'm using that as a positive because, Zealot itself opens up with this really punchy oomph. You can feel the spirit of that 70s rock there without it just being a complete cut and paste, there are flavors that I'm like, okay, well, that's more like a Boston, or, oh, that's more like a Kansas, or, oh, that's more like a Styx. But it kind of blends together to create some really interesting and intricate music, and they're once again, they're kind of just massaging that flavor into it rather than just being a carbon copy of it. And I do love the 11-minute stretches that allows them to really stretch their legs and cover a lot more grounding that some of the smaller tracks don't. And some of the smaller tracks, they're fairly good, but I will say, that's not necessarily what I come back to. Pick of the Litter being the second track is fine. It's a good track, It's reminding me of some of the smaller tracks that, say, a Neil Morse would do with the Neil Morse band, or even within Spock's Beard. It's driven. I love the synths that are found on here that create a little bit more of a dash, a little bit more of a spice that's found throughout that. But honestly, it's that infectious singing style that's also on here. It's both aggressive, but also very meaty and very timely. And so I like that there's a little bit more of this balance between the harsh and the more soft aspect of that. And I think the thing that really draws me to this band is just how much fun they're having. The third track of Chain Reaction is just a fun track. And again, we're feeling a lot of that Styx flavors on here. I'm getting flavors of both Paradise Theater, but also on Mr. Roboto. It's got that bounce. It's got that fun aspect to it that I don't hear a lot, you know, especially within PROG. I mean, there's a lot of fun within PROG, but it almost feels like they wanted to do fun first. And I like that flavor on here. And if we want to talk about fun, let's talk about the fourth track of On the Other Side. And I love the different soundscapes that they're putting on some of their instruments. Not only within like the sounds on the synth, but also some of the sounds that they're purveying on the guitars. And again, it's got this bop, it's got this fun flavor to it. Like, again, this is what I was hoping for some of these more modern rock bands to do, because I do feel as if modern rock is kind of floundering. And at least these guys are, you know, moving the ship forward a little bit. And I mean, this brings us to Borrowed Time, which is the big single off of this album, and it's a lot of fun. I can see why people would come to this track a lot more than some of their other ones. It's infectious, it's immediate as well, it's very catchy. I feel like this and Pickin' the Litter are like the two big tracks that are like really begging people to be listened to, but for me, gotta talk about Another Day. Another Day is by far the best track off of this record, and one of the best tracks that has been recorded this year. And I'm not just hyperbolicing within that. I'm being genuine in there. The last half of this track is what I love about progressive rock. And I feel like Brass Camel is able to construct this brilliant and beautiful prog masterpiece. And it almost makes me frustrated for the rest of the album, because I'm like, okay, you guys are able to channel the prog masters of the past. You know, there are moments that I'm listening that I'm feeling from like a Genesis and a Tony Banks on like A Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. You know, this was something that like the December People was doing with their first Christmas record, where, you know, they're doing a song but in the style of. That's what I'm feeling on this within Another Day, because the second half of this track feels like Cinema Show and Supper's Ready in the big play out, the big jam session that we have near that halfway point that really rejuvenates itself at the end with the slow down big, like at the end, I'm just high-fiving all the angels, you know, with that big reprisal of the theme that was introduced at the very beginning and the explosion of sound when we get to that end point, you know, like immediately I'll go right back to the beginning of this track and just listen to this single track over and over and over and over again. Just because of how powerful it is, how moving it is. And this, as I keep saying, like this track distills what it is that I love about progressive rock. Like this was what I loved about IQ within the Ever and the Seventh House. You know, this is what I loved about progressive rock within Genesis, you know, Selling England by the Pound and Trick of the Tail. Like, this track itself distills it into a single entity. I just kind of wish that the rest of the album had that same essence and had that same flow. I hope and I beg that Brass Camel's next album is much more like Another Day than it is like the rest of the album. And I can honestly see this band going one of two ways, right? I can see them kind of doing more of the same, you know, and kind of flirting a little bit within this playing style. But honestly, I think if they really hunkered down and gave us an album that emulated what I loved about Another Day into a single album, we could have an all-timer on our hands. You know, we would easily have my favorite album of the year, and we would easily have, you know, a prog masterpiece. But from what we've got a 10 out of 10 track that's full of, you know, 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10 tracks that are preceding it. So in the end, Camel was a great time from Brass Camel. I think that this album is far superior than their first album, and I'm really, really excited to see what they have in the future. You know, this has definitely whetted my appetite to see what this band has in store in the future. But as it stands right now, what I will say for my final rating of this album is Camel by Brass Camel is an album I would absolutely pick up in physical format. Yeah, this one gets the note seal of approval. I would run and don't walk to listen to Another Day, the closing track off of this record, because if you're a fan of progressive rock, if you're a fan of prog, this is a must listen to, for sure. Absolutely. Just know that, you know, the rest of the album is fun. It's fine. It's a good time. I wouldn't run to go turn it off. It's not, you know, it's not bad. It's just because Another Day is so friggin' good, the rest of the album just kind of blemishes in comparison. So that's what I've got for Camel by Brass Camel. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys for today. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.